When the lights go out and the shadows stretch across the room, our minds begin to play tricks on us. We all know fear, but what if that fear isn't just born from our imagination? What if the horrors we think are confined to the world of fiction are, in fact, rooted in reality? Tonight, we dive deep into 5 true stories that will haunt your thoughts long after the screen goes dark. These are not tales meant to entertain. They are real, chilling events that have sent shivers down the spines of those who experience them. Buckle up. You're about to hear 5 real-life horrors that will keep you up at night. Part 1. The disappearance of the Sodder children. The night before Christmas in 1945, a fire tore through the Sodder family home in Fayetteville, West Virginia. It was an unthinkable tragedy. 5 of the 10 Sodder children were never seen again. The fire was believed to have consumed them, but things didn't add up. What followed was a mystery that has baffled people for decades. The family had been fast asleep when flames engulfed their house in the dead of night. The parents, George and Jenny, woke up to the sound of cracking wood, smoke filling the air. In a panic, George smashed a window to help his wife and their remaining children escape. When they looked back, the house was consumed by flames. But when the firefighters arrived, there was no sign of the 5 missing children. The official story was that the children had perished in the fire. But there were strange details that didn't add up. First, the fire department found no remains of the children, no bones, no ashes, nothing. Only a few charred pieces of furniture remained. Secondly, the fire had burned at a strangely low temperature, too low to have completely consumed human bodies. This led many, including the Sodder family, to suspect that the children had been taken. But who would have taken them and why? As George and Jenny searched for answers, they uncovered unsettling clues. Neighbors reported seeing strange vehicles parked near the house in the days leading up to the fire. One witness claimed they saw a group of men near the Sodder property the night of the fire. And then there were the bizarre phone calls. In the weeks following the fire, Jenny began receiving cryptic phone calls, male voices laughing and then hanging up. One call, in particular, was especially disturbing. A man laughed and said, "We're keeping them." The mystery has never been solved. In the decades since, numerous theories have emerged. Some believe the children were kidnapped by a local crime syndicate. Others suspect foul play by an unknown enemy of the Sodder family. But what remains undeniable is the eerie truth: 5 children disappeared without a trace, and their parents are left haunted by a fire that didn't make sense. Part 2. The Hinterkaifeck Murders. In 1922, a quiet farmhouse in Germany became the site of one of the most disturbing and unresolved murder cases in history. The Hinterkaifeck farm was home to 6 people: Andreas Gruber, his wife, their daughter, the daughter's 2 children, and the maid. All of them were brutally murdered in a grisly act of violence that would leave the farm abandoned for years to come. The gruesome discovery was made after the family failed to show up for work at a nearby village. A neighbor went to check on them, only to find a scene straight out of a nightmare. The bodies of the Gruber family and their maid were discovered in various rooms of the farmhouse, all brutally murdered with a pickaxe. The crime scene was horrifying, but what made the case even more chilling was the eerie presence of the killer. After the murders, police discovered unsettling evidence that suggested the killer had been living in the house for days before the murders. The family's cat was found alive, but the farm's animals had been strangely cared for. Someone had been feeding them during the time between the deaths. The most disturbing part of all, however, was the discovery that footprints leading from the house to the woods were found, but not a single set of footprints leading away. Who had committed this brutal crime and why? Theories abound. Some believe the killer was someone with a deep, personal grudge against the family. Others suggest it may have been someone from the Grubers' past, perhaps even a family member. But despite years of investigations, the truth has never been uncovered. What makes this case even more chilling is the idea that the killer could have been living among the victims in the days before the murders. It's as if the family was being watched and then slaughtered in cold blood. To this day, the Hinterkaifeck murders remain unsolved, and the farmhouse where it all took place stands abandoned, a haunting reminder of the chilling events that unfolded there. Part 3. The Haunting of the Villisca Axe Murder House. In 1912, the small town of Villisca, Iowa, was forever changed by a brutal axe murder. The Moore family, parents Josiah and Sarah, along with their 4 children, were found slaughtered in their own home. Along with them were 2 guests, Lena and Ina Stillinger, who had been spending the night with the Moores. All 8 victims were hacked to death while they slept, the murderer striking with such force that the axe left deep gouges in the walls. The killer, however, left behind no witnesses, no evidence, and no clear motive. It was as if the murderer had vanished into thin air, leaving only horror in their wake. For years, the case remained unsolved, and the house stood empty, abandoned, but never forgotten. But then the hauntings began. Over the years, visitors to the Villisca Axe Murder House reported strange occurrences. Doors would slam shut without explanation, and cold drafts would sweep through rooms where no windows were open. Some said they heard eerie sounds, children crying in the night, or the sound of footsteps moving in the darkness. Others claimed to have seen ghostly apparitions, often the figures of the children who had died in the house. The house had become infamous not only for the gruesome murders, but for the terrifying spirits that seemed to linger there. It wasn't just visitors who experienced the paranormal activity. The town of Villisca itself seemed to be affected by the crime. Locals would often speak in hushed tones about the house, their fear palpable whenever they passed by. Some believed the ghostly spirits of the victims were trapped within the walls, unable to move on due to the brutal nature of their deaths. Others thought the killer's spirit still lingered, cursed to repeat the horrific events of that night. The Villisca Axe Murder House remains a chilling monument to a crime that was never solved and continues to haunt those who dare to visit. Part 4. The Death of Elisa Lam. In 2013, a mysterious death at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles shocked the world. Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old Canadian tourist, was last seen on surveillance footage inside the hotel's elevator, acting erratically. Her bizarre behavior, pressing buttons, hiding in the corner, and peering out, gave rise to various theories, from mental illness to the possibility of a supernatural event. Days later, Elisa's body was discovered in one of the hotel's water tanks. The cause of death was later determined to be accidental drowning, but the circumstances surrounding her death remained shrouded in mystery. What made Elisa's death so haunting was the eerie nature of her final moments. The elevator footage was unsettling, as if she were being stalked by an unseen force. The hotel itself, known for its dark history, including its connection to serial killer Richard Ramirez, only added to the growing sense of unease. Why was Elisa Lam in the water tank? How did she get there? Theories about foul play, including the possibility that someone had murdered her, spread quickly. But the most chilling idea was that Elisa had been somehow lured to her death by a malevolent force, one that had ties to the hotel's notorious past. To this day, Elisa's death remains unsolved, and the Cecil Hotel's dark history continues to haunt those who enter. Part 5. The Watcher House. In 2014, Derek and Maria Broaddus purchased a beautiful home at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey, with dreams of raising their family. But shortly after they moved in, they began receiving bizarre and unsettling letters from someone who identified themselves as the Watcher. The letters were disturbingly personal, detailing the family's activities in ways that seemed to indicate someone was watching them from the shadows. The Watcher wrote about the children, their names, their movements, and even their sleep patterns. The letters were laced with threats, warning the Broaddus family to leave before the Watcher did something terrible. The family was terrified. They reported the letters to the police, but the identity of the Watcher was never discovered. The family lived in constant fear, knowing that someone somewhere was watching their every move. Despite extensive investigations and even surveillance, the Watcher remained a mystery, leaving behind only the haunting letters. Eventually, the Broaddus family was forced to sell the house, unable to escape the terror they had been living with. To this day, the identity of the Watcher remains a mystery, and the house at 657 Boulevard stands as a chilling reminder of the terror that can lurk just beyond our doorsteps. These are the real-life horrors that defy explanation, that send chills down the spine and make us question the very nature of reality. They remind us that sometimes the most terrifying things are not found in movies or books, but in the world around us. So, the next time you hear a strange noise in the dark or feel like you're being watched, remember, you might not be alone. And the truth? It might be far scarier than you could ever imagine.